Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining our NetHope Solution Center webinar today. My name is Madeline No and I'm from NetHope. And today our topic is Better Collaboration, Bigger Impact, How to Manage Your Work with Asana. And just as a side note, the NetHope Solution Center webinar production team uses Asana to manage our webinar process. And we're very happy to have the experts and expert users here today and hope to learn some new tips and tricks from all of them. Our presenters today come from Wildlife Conservation Society, Islamic Relief Canada, our own NetHope, as well as Asana. And before we get started, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping guidelines for our session today. We'd like to keep this session interactive. We would like you to open your chat window and put any of your comments and questions in the chat window for our Q&A session toward the end of the hour. Do also look for a follow-up email with a link to the recording for this session and all the collateral and links. It will be on the NetHope Solution Center later today. And we hope that you will respond to our webinar satisfaction poll that will pop up at the end of the session. We appreciate your feedback, and we use it to make our webinar series better and better every time. And with that, I will turn it over to Aaron Williams from Asana.
Thank you, Madeline. I hope everyone can see my screen now. I want to do a real quick round of introductions for all our presenters. Jonathan, do you want to kick us off? Check your mute button, Jonathan.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. I am Jonathan Palmer, learning how to unmute. I am the Executive Director for Strategic Technology at WCS and an old hand at NetHope.
Hello. Hi, my name is Yusra Rizwan. I'm from Islamic Relief Canada. I'm the Human Resources Manager. I also wear a couple different hats, currently the interim head of our international and domestic programs as well, and really excited to be here today.
Hi, and I'm Alex Alpert. I'm the Membership Director here at NetHope. Thanks so much for being on this webinar today, and looking forward to seeing how everybody is using Asana and getting this exciting offer out to all of our members and nonprofit partners.
Awesome, and my name's Aaron Williams. I manage our nonprofit team, and we'll also be having two other Asanas make guest appearances, Alan from our marketing team and Michael Armstrong from our nonprofit team. So just to level set on the agenda for today, we're going to do a couple minutes of introduction, then we're going to hear from each of our three other panelists talking about how they're using Asana and what difference it's made for their organizations. We'll see an amazing Asana demo, and then we'll have some time for live Q&A. So as Madeline mentioned, make sure to put any questions you have in the chat feature, and we'll be curating those to address at the end of the webinar. The world has changed. Hopefully that's the most obvious statement we'll hear today. We're all experiencing this new world that was forced on us together. You may feel like you're at the mercy of the current environment instead of in control of it, which can lead to a trepid state of mind. My fellow hyper-compulsive planners out there can confirm this. As individuals, teams, and organizations, we don't have the ability to influence this macro environment. But we can control how we respond, persevere, and thrive during this time of change. Today's circumstances are especially tough for the nonprofit sector, which is systemically expected to operate with thin margins and fewer resources. And now more than ever, the work of the nonprofit sector is of the utmost importance. I invite everyone to take a second and think about how these environmental changes have impacted how you operate and get your work done. Teams need to pivot daily in response to new information. Priorities are fluid and shifting constantly. Many folks just became part-time teachers on top of full-time employees. And the swimming pool of in-person meetings we formerly knew became an ocean of video conferences and constant pings overnight. To thrive under these circumstances, we need to be more collaborative than ever. But how are we supposed to do that when we're all sheltering in place? I like this quote from Dustin, Asana's CEO, because it highlights what true collaboration is all about. Confidence, clarity, alignment, organization, working together in pursuit of goals larger than ourselves. With this definition of collaboration in mind, I'd like to talk about the 3 essential components that unlock real collaboration. Collaboration in its simplest form can be broken down into the 3 C's: communication, content, and coordination. Teams have invested heavily in technology solutions for the first 2 C's, communication and content. Especially during these times, interest in remote communication tools has skyrocketed. But in many cases, teams have not invested in the 3rd C of collaboration, the coordination layer. Coordination answers the question, who is doing what by when? Without coordination, we spend more time having conversations and reading more content, but not advancing our mission-critical work. As a result, most teams have resorted to makeshift solutions to coordinate their work. The most common are meetings, slides, and spreadsheets. These don't scale because they're a singular snapshot in time, not a shared and dynamic plan of accountability and action. Time invested into coordinating work using these solutions keeps us busy and maintains the status quo, but it doesn't lead to more collaboration. Other teams have invested in traditional project management tools, but these are seldom adopted beyond professional project managers. They force users to conform to how their software defines a project lifecycle. And the plan of record is an artifact best suited for management roundtables rather than a living connection to the underlying work being done. That's why we built Asana. Asana is one of the pioneers of a newish category of software called work management. Work management is all about giving teams clarity of plan, process, and responsibility. It solves the problem of team coordination and answers the question, who's doing what by when. Asana helps coordinate the elements of work: people, plans, projects, processes, information, and content, so teams can spend their time collaborating to solve problems. Projects are time-bound initiatives, such as fundraising campaigns, events, and IT implementations. Processes are ongoing workflows, such as design request, volunteer training, and employee onboarding. By managing your team's work in one place, you get a single source of truth on project progress, a central hub for workflow processes, and reduce work about work, so you have more time to focus on the stuff that matters. From April 6th through April 15th, Asana conducted a survey called The Anatomy of Work for Remote Teams. This survey evaluated the behaviors and attitudes of more than 5,000 full-time employees working from home. Yesterday, we shared the findings of that survey, so I thought it'd be prudent to mention a few of those findings today. Employees who use a work management platform feel more supported by their manager and believe they're more productive while working remotely compared to employees who do not use a work management platform. Both those things sound pretty good to me. All right, so you heard enough from me. I'm excited to introduce Jonathan again, who's going to take us through a little bit about Wildlife Conservation Society and their journey with Asana. Jonathan, I hope you can find that mute button. Turn it over to you.
Great, thanks, Aaron. So yeah, let me introduce first the Wildlife Conservation Society for those who are unfamiliar. We're a US-based organization that we work both on science, conservation science, discovery, on protection efforts around the world, whether that's in protected areas or addressing illegal wildlife trade. And we work on inspiring the world to value nature. We have 500 programs in 60 countries, plus 4 zoos and an aquarium here in New York. And our focus areas include improving management of protected areas and habitat, protection for species, animal, human, and livestock health, and the interface of those 3 in a One World, One Health program, illegal trade, both at the source and at the destination, but also through breaking illegal trade networks. Governance and livelihoods, ensuring people living in and around protected areas and wildlife have successful lives with good economic development. And conservation technology. We invest heavily in technology for conservation. Next slide. So, why did we come to Asana? I think we all know the tools that we all thought of as productivity tools are limited in many ways. And for our organization, email, and then layered on top of that, Skype and WhatsApp and a whole range of other tools were really kind of getting out of hand and getting to the state where not only did we have our content, our tasks and our communications mixed up in channels, but they were mixed up in multiple channels. And so people who were trying to work on projects were actually just going over and over through huge volumes of emails in their inbox. We weren't under any illusion that we would totally transform the situation and free everyone from the burdens of emails. But we did identify 3 objectives we wanted to work on. We wanted to make sure the tasks were better executed and coordinated across and between teams. We wanted to create greater transparency in the organization, and this came with a new leadership in our global conservation program that wanted to make the team more boundaryless, or the program more boundaryless, and make sure if people had inputs or wanted to engage in an activity, they at least had access to what was going on. And then thirdly, we wanted to better manage complex projects where we had projects that were running across multiple business units, multiple regions, with both internal and external collaborators. And those 3 needs came together and led us to focus on a workload management tool, and we selected Asana. So I'm just going to go through some very simple examples of how Asana has helped here. In the image in front of you here, you just have 3 screenshots of a set of tasks that are linked together. The larger image is a kind of monthly view that just shows how those tasks are connected. In the top right, you have a view of when you've zoomed in, and so you can see who is responsible for activities and the deadlines. And below you have an individual task. This has gone incredibly well for us, and it's been a learning experience for many of the managers and leaders in our organization, including myself, to understand this is not just about making sure managers can see who's doing what and are they working to the timeline, but it's been a huge help for our staff because they've been able to actually see where does their work fit into the broader context. Where is something that perhaps isn't critical in their mind? Where is there something that's a dependency for others that's important that they move forward on? So next slide. The second area we were challenged with in our organization was to improve transparency. And so as part of that, in my team and a number of teams, we've actually committed to being fully open about all the tasks we're working on. Now, we have some exceptions. So obviously, if I have a task that's about a personal issue for an employee, that remains private. But pretty much everything I do, my team and a number of our teams do in the organization is actually have an open workload. That's great for me as a manager because I can actually see what everyone's working on. It's fostered a culture where people are less concerned about what people have done and justifying what they've done, and more a stronger culture of people focused on what are they going to do next, where are they going to contribute value going forward. It also keeps me accountable to my team, that if my team know what I'm doing, they can not only understand how their work fits into the context, but they can also see how they can contribute it more to the team. Next slide.
Jonathan, those elephant emojis, real top notch.
That's fantastic. Yeah, that's one little thing you get with Asana. You can use emojis on your project names. The third area is basically managing complex projects. And so, again, across an organization, we have regional programs, country programs, but we also have thematic programs that will deal with things like conservation technology, illegal wildlife trade, livelihoods, governance, natural resource extraction, working with industry. What we've managed to do is not only use Asana to implement those, but we've also used something called portfolio management within Asana. Portfolio management allows you to pull out key projects from multiple teams and consolidate them into one portfolio, allowing an executive not to have to drill down into all the detail about what's going on in every single team, but to see the key projects that are relevant to them as part of a portfolio, and see the status and just click in and request an update on the status. So I see there's a question in the chat, but let's leave those questions till the end. And I think with that, I'll hand over to my next colleague.
Thank you, Jonathan. And for everyone who's sitting there thinking, wow, Jonathan must be a multi-year Asana user with crazy expertise. I think you've only been using Asana for like 2.5 months, right?
I think it's more like 4.5, but yeah, it's early days.
It's amazing to see how quickly you were able to get up and running and start making an impact on your team.
Thanks.
All right, so I'd like to introduce Yusra, who's from Islamic Relief Canada and is going to give us a similar understanding with a different twist on how her organizations benefit from using a work management platform.
Okay, thank you so much, Aaron, and hello to everyone again. So I'll just start off by giving you guys a bit of a background on our organization for those who are unfamiliar. So we are an international aid agency. We do have offices all around the world, but in Canada we've been operating since 2007. So we have programs in over 30 different countries around the world, and we do mostly focus our programming on humanitarian assistance as well as international development. We are able to work across multiple sectors, so including emergency, food, water, health, education projects, etc. And we've been able to help over 1 million people just last year with multiple new projects, and we try and carry that through every year. So we can move on. And so why do we use Asana? So quick kind of background on how we started with Asana. It was about, I believe about 4 years ago. We've seen actually exponential growth in our organization. So about 4 or 5 years ago, we were only about 10 people. So we were okay with just using some of the tools Aaron was mentioning on earlier. But then as we started to grow, we noticed kind of, there's gaps in communication, et cetera. So it started off with just some of our managers using it, and then it started trickling down and became adapted organization-wide. And through the years, we've seen some really key things. One is the removal of organizational silos. So we're able to better work collaboratively across different departments and really have a good view on what everyone is working on and how we can all work together. The nature of our organization means there's a lot of cross-functional projects that we're working on that rely on other teams as well. So this has really helped. Secondly, responding quicker to unanticipated situations. So obviously being in the emergency space, there's always something that can kind of pop up out of nowhere, and we're only impactful if we're able to respond quickly to it. And we've definitely used Asana to help us kind of get organized really quickly and respond in a short amount of time. And I have some examples to show how we've done that in the past as well. And then lastly, reduce time spent in meetings. I think we all know meetings are not always effective or useful, and we've definitely used Asana to help eliminate some of that wasted time that can happen through meetings. So with that, I'll start with some examples of each of those points. So first, in terms of removing organizational silos, here on the screen you can see I've shown 2 screenshots of how we use Asana differently with regards to that. So number one, at the bottom here, the Ramadan 2020 event planning. Again, so for those who are not familiar, Ramadan is for faith-based charities, especially those in the Muslim sector. Ramadan is a huge month for charity and for giving, so it's basically our playoffs. So it's a giant campaign, and it's for all teams across the organization. So we use the project to make sure we have a view on what everyone's doing. As I was mentioning earlier, there's a lot of tasks that are reliant on other departments, and so as you can see, we're able to tell which is assigned to which team member, who's owning certain projects, and then it's easy enough for us to follow up on progress, etc. On the other side, we have what we call our IRC Bulletin project. So this one's really neat. Again, there are so many different things that people use across the organization, and so we wanted to put all of that together in one project, which we call our bulletin. And essentially, it's where you can find all the projects that you need to access, and it's available for the entire organization. Say you needed to make a request for marketing for a poster or a video, you can find all these requests boards here. You can go in, you can track the progress of your request, see what other people are doing as well, so there's no duplication of tasks, etc. Other things that we've used this for, not strictly work related, but that help the organization overall. We have a knowledge sharing board that's really neat. So if you've learned something or you've come across something really cool, we encourage people to put it on there. Everyone gets a notification. You can go and browse that, and you're sharing you're sharing knowledge across your organization in seconds. And the other one that's really neat as well is our lessons learned board. So again, we encourage, communication and transparency. So if you've ever made a stumble or made a mistake or something during the course of your work, we encourage people to share that so that the lessons learned can be shared across your organization. So just some really neat ways to make sure that communication is done across the board. And then moving on to our second point, which is responding quicker to some of those emergencies. So we have another board called Emergency Appeals, and just to kind of brief outline of how emergencies work. Obviously, we have a programs team that monitors different emergencies across the world, and if there's one that pops up and it's a significant impact, we make sure that if we're operating there, our programs teams are contacting our field teams and getting all that information, doing the needs analysis. At the same time, if we want to launch for an appeal, our marketing teams have to get all the creatives ready, our fundraising teams have to get their teams ready to push out to the community, and our external relations team will do press releases, etc. So to make sure that that's seamless, we have really good examples that there were there was an earthquake in Pakistan earlier in the year last year, and that was one of our kind of success stories where we had piloted this emergency appeals board. As soon as that happened, our programs team put up the notification. We had a discussion on Asana on whether there's also fields. Unfortunately, you can't see it on the screenshot here, but you can create custom fields. And so you can kind of label like, okay, this is a large scale emergency. Do we want to launch? Yes. Then you kind of bring on the marketing team. They create subtasks to start creating the creatives and launch online, et cetera. So we were able to kind of launch and respond within a matter of a couple days, like 72 hours, which for us was great. And then on the other side, same thing. Obviously, we've all been impacted by Corona. So we have a campaign Corona board. For us, it was leading into Ramadan, as I mentioned. It's one of our busiest time of the year, and it's kind of all hands on deck, and usually packed of offline activities. But this year we had to pivot all of those offline to online activities, and this was really helpful. Again, it was an org-wide initiative, and we were able to really quickly do some mitigation and some planning, and then jumped on a board, created this new campaign, figured out how to turn all of our offline activities into online activities, get everyone on board, and keep everyone abreast of all the progress and what needs to be done. So that really helped us respond really quickly because everyone was on the same page right away. All right, and then lastly, reducing time spent in meetings. So this is kind of going into some of the request boards that I mentioned earlier that are available on our bulletin project. So for example, content request. Every department will have some form of content request, whether that's creating a thank you letter for a community member, or updating a web page, or writing an email, etc. So our content team, can get really bogged down by all these requests, but this is a good way to, instead of kind of setting up a meeting every time you need to have a content, what needs to be included and how that needs to, what audience that needs to go to, etc. We use this board. So you go in, you create a task, you write down what you need all, and it's kind of set out in a way where you can fill in all that information the team would need to start the content. And then you can see the progress where they move it into the review, assign it to somebody. You can see, if it's ready to review, if it's ready to send it out, et cetera. And it drastically reduces it back and forth and the time that would be spent in meetings trying to figure out all those details. Similarly, on the other side, you have our content calendar. So obviously a lot of our work involves marketing and talking to the community and spreading awareness of all the activities that we're doing, as fundraising is a huge part of what we do. And again, so a lot of people, would have questions on, okay, are we posting this, or what are we doing, or what's going up on our social media? Again, instead of kind of scheduling those meetings for every single campaign, you have this that's open. Everyone can go in and view what's slated to go in next. You can make requests, etc. So it really reduces the time that people are kind of going back and forth and talking to each other. Everything is available for you to get a bird's eye view on and submit requests, etc. So it saved us a lot of time. And it's also really great because everything is documented. So, instead of kind of in meetings, if you miss something out in minutes or anything like that, everything on here, conversations, comments, all of that is documented, so you can always refer back to previous conversations, assign things to people right away, set deadlines, all of that. So it's been really, really helpful.
Sure, that's amazing to see those use cases come to life. Thank you so much for sharing. And I want to introduce Alex real quick, who's going to give us a little more overview of NetHope and talk about the partnership that NetHope and Asana has been forming.
Thanks, Aaron. And really, thanks for taking the time to be here today with to talk through, and Jonathan, you, Sarah, for sharing your experiences. I'm going to try to be brief because I really want to spend time hearing the questions that people have. So give you, Aaron, an opportunity to answer that and to do the demos. But NetHope, as many of you already know, is a membership organization of almost 60 of the largest NGOs around the world focusing on humanitarian conservation. Our core, what's core to our mission is collaboration. So of course, when I first started talking to Aaron about Asana, I said to him, look, we're a small team, we're a virtual team, and we have different regional meetings across the globe that we're trying to do year round, with 6 different chapters, with the summit, a global summit, all of these types of webinars that Madeline and Seth, who are the webinar team, do a fantastic job, are really relying on the workflow that Asana helps us to navigate through. So when we first started talking to Aaron, we were not really coming from any other platform. We were just each using our own way of doing it. We were still very new to Asana. And it's fun to see how people, other organizations are further along the way. But I will tell you that my biggest, you could go actually to the next slide, please. For me, the things that I would say that, I personally have impacted the way I work. Number one, it sounds very simple, but I moved away from a notebook, my to-do list on a notebook where and I travel a lot, and not so much in these days, but traveling a lot with a notebook is not always convenient. Making sure you have the right notebook that I spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to organize my notebooks. There's a lot of different videos out there on organizing paper notebooks, believe it or not. So I am not embarrassed to say I was a notebook person. I am happy to say I'm no longer a notebook person, and to move all of your tasks and your big projects that you're working on onto Asana, for me, was really life-changing. Again, we're a small team, and as we planned each of these regional chapters, we were getting requests. We were working on venue logistics things. We were working on agenda items. So there were different leads for each of the chapters. And so the things that I wanted to just really focus on quickly, things that I love about Asana that have changed my life and my work world. One, of course, as I said, I'm no longer on a notebook. 2, the mobile app. I leave a chapter meeting, I'd be flying home. I live in San Diego, so nothing is by San Diego related to work. So oftentimes spent many hours on a plane. Sometimes I was off, I didn't have Wi-Fi, so being able to do kind of offline on my phone really quickly, the brain dump that happens after a big meeting right into Asana, using the app, even sometimes at a stoplight, if you're used to using Siri and just using the voice recognition, just to kind of recording yourself, don't forget to, and then to find it in your task, because if you're like me, they don't always come to you when you're sitting in front of your desk. Third thing, I just really, again, that's really changed the way we do is using the forms. So when we do chapters, we have, these are all member driven agendas. And so members are often submitting ideas of what kind of agendas that they want. So being able to kind of see things as they come in, and it's a really easy way of doing it. It's not something I have to kind of go ask some for technical support to go do. And lastly, I just want to kind of emphasize something that Jonathan said about the transparency across the teams, because, you know, NetHope is a small organization and we are virtual. I've been to so many of these webinars, and yet, you know, to really understand what it takes for Madeline and Seth to run these webinars is so different when you see it on paper or when you see it on Asana, when you see it actually happening. There's a tremendous amount of work that goes along with that, and being able to understand that helps the whole team understand where people are spending their time, ability for them to take on additional work, and really also you realize that these webinars aren't just thrown together last minute. Although I always try to to give poor Madeline and Seth all kinds of webinar things last minute, but it's really helpful to see that transparency across the teams. Next slide, please. Just so my last thing I wanted to share about Asana is when I first went to speak with Aaron about this, we work with many technology partners, and technology partners for us, it's part of what we do. We try to bridge that tech and nonprofit world. But oftentimes our technology partners come with us, here's a free this and a free that. But one of the things that I really appreciate about working with Asana is that the level of commitment they've made, not only on their making affordable for nonprofits, but really the support and working with their team, with Sam, and especially who really was dedicated to making sure that we had a good implementation, but also that the training was there. From starting your first templates. Okay, if I have one chapter meeting, are all 6 going to look the same, and can I use the same template? So really thinking through how I would use it, being available all the time. So just being able to have that full support. So not just the technology, but really the training and implementation side was really helpful. My last note here I have is that, and we're not using all of these, but I'm really excited about this, is integration, of course, with Salesforce, integration with Slack, and then my other favorite thing is my Outlook integration. So being able to forward a email to a task on Asana right from my Outlook. Again, super life-changing. Like my goal is to not have any folders in my Outlook anymore. There should be no folders in my Outlook. It should just be inbox, and then everything should be going to either a task or, hopefully deleting. So Aaron, thanks so much, and for your team for really everything you guys have done for NetHope and for so many of our members. Thanks for this time today, and I will pass it back over to you guys for the demo.
Awesome. Thank you, Alex. You did a great job leading us into the demo, because we'll definitely touch on the Outlook and Salesforce integration and give people a view of what Asana looks like in action. I just wanted to throw Asana's mission statement on this slide, which is to help humanity thrive by enabling the world's teams to work together effortlessly. And before we see a demo, I wanted to quickly talk about how Asana is standing firmly behind our mission and offering support for all nonprofit organizations during this time. I'd recommend taking a screenshot of this slide so you can visit the links after the webinar. But for nonprofit organizations that are either members of NetHope or working on the front lines of COVID-19 research and response and are new Asana customers, you can receive a free 12-month Asana business subscription. And all other nonprofit organizations can apply for 50% off an annual Asana premium or business subscription through TechSoup, who we've partnered with to decrease the fee nonprofits pay to apply for this discount from $73 to $5 through May 15th. All of these organizations also have access to the Asana Advisors Program, where you can schedule a free 1-hour consultative working session with an Asana employee to help your team get the most out of Asana. Now I'm going to hand it over to Alan from Asana's marketing team to give us a quick demonstration of what Asana looks like in action and highlight a few examples of how a nonprofit could benefit from using Asana. So Alan, we're a little crunched on time. Hope you can make it work.
We're going to look at a fictional organization called critical.Yet, who is really focused on furthering educational opportunities around the world. And as we go through this story, we're going to hit a couple different personas, like Jamie, who's a director at Pinnacle. Let's go ahead and dive into Jamie's persona. Here we are inside of Asana. This is where she logs in every day, as she can see her upcoming tasks, her favorite projects and portfolios. We'll check out what that is in a moment, and her recent projects. For those who haven't seen Asana before, let me orient you to the interface. On the top right, she has her profile with settings, along with a very powerful search, so she can find any information she needs in Asana. On the left-hand side, she has her tasks, her inbox, as well as her favorite projects and portfolios. There are teams with all the projects associated with them, and let's go ahead and dive into her My Tasks. These are all the things that she's working on gathered into one place. And it's organized by date. It's got tags for projects that they belong to. And we can see that she can look at it also as a calendar. So this is where Jamie can really prioritize and plan out what she needs to get done. Let's go ahead and take a look at her inbox. Now, this is where she gets notifications for anything that she's a collaborator on. So if someone uploads a picture, if someone updates a task, or if a project gets updated, this is where all that information flows. This is how Jamie can keep great visibility across the entire organization and really stay up to date with what's going on. Let's click into one. And here we get a view of the task that generated that notification. We can see that a task has an assignee, a due date, as well as what project it belongs to. Over here, we have custom fields. These are metadata that describe the type of work. Down below, we have a description, of course, that gives information about what needs to be done, as well as the ability to create subtasks, the steps that help make this task come to life. At the bottom, we've got a great place for the whole team to have conversation about the work itself. Let's go ahead and dive into one of her key projects, the marketing fundraising campaign. This is where Jamie and her team can come together to figure out all the tasks that they need to do to help raise funds. And so we see there are sections for advertising, for email outreach, website updates, all the things that they need to be done in order to help move this campaign forward. And in each of these rows are essentially the tasks. We've got the assignees, the custom fields, all the information that one needs to understand the work that needs to be done. And the great thing about custom fields is that it's very easy to add in some extra ones. So here you can click and add a new one. You can turn on and off ones that have already been added. And to add a new custom field, you just give it a name. And there are several different types that you can choose from: text, numbers, and of course you have currency, percentages, all the information that you can possibly need to help describe the work that needs to be done. Now, this is the list view of a project. Fortunately for Jamie and her team, they can view this in many other ways, like this one, a board view. This is a Kanban style view where each card is a task. And you can move tasks from the left to the right along these sections. Now, another view is the calendar view. Similar to the inbox, this is where tasks are aligned on a calendar, really giving a sense of what's coming up. In the progress tab, you can see what tasks have been completed, what are incomplete, as well as a project status. You can see milestones and all the information about how the project is progressing along. And there's one more view called the timeline view. This is a really great view for Jamie's team. It gives a task in a timeline where you can see dependencies. And that's what this line is here. That shows what tasks are dependent on previous ones being completed. And Asana is smart. As you move things along, as things will change in a project, it'll automatically shift the tasks downstream to keep things up to date for you. Let's explore this task over here. So this is for creating a new landing page for pinnacle.org, and Nolan's working on this and has a number of subtasks that he's working on. So what we can do is actually help him out by attaching some files. And that can be done at the top right here. You see we can attach from your computer, as well as integrations with many content sources like Dropbox, Google Drive, and so forth. Let's go ahead and select this image of these campaign thermometers that he can use on the landing page. This is going to be really helpful for the campaign. And so with that, the image is now uploaded and it appears in the conversation down below. And all the folks collaborating here can give it a like, respond to it with some comments saying, hey, here's some image that you can use, and they can do a lot more. If you click into the image, you can see that, hey, there's something that we might want to change. what we can do is click and assign a subtask to it directly using proofing. Here we want to see, can we update this text to say pinnacle.org? And as you can see, a subtask is created with that number 1, and it stays at that specific spot on the image. Awesome. So that's one of the key projects that Jamie and her team uses at pinnacle.org. Let me show you one more. And that's this one called Community Support Requests. This is the project that Jamie and her team uses to manage all the requests that come from the community. So folks outside of the organization can add in ideas and requests directly for her team to address. This is viewed in the Kanban style board view. As you can see, the task can be moved from left to right. And typically these columns are set up as stages. And so as a request comes in, you can move it to in progress, to prioritize, and so forth. How do tasks get created? Well, this project can be shared with team members and other folks throughout pinnacle.org. Another way is to use forms. This is our clicks, not code way to create a web form that can be filled out and will automatically create a task right into that project. And as you can see here, we've set this up to bring in a lot of information, description, what sort of help is needed. And the great thing is that you can add in any question type that you want. Paragraphs, numbers, attachments, and even the custom fields are available to you in forms. And with a simple click, you can add them to it, provide a description, and then you can reorganize the form as you like. Once the form is ready, you can then put this anywhere. You can put it onto a website, into an email signature, you can send it over to someone. Let's take a quick look at what it looks like when someone fills out the form. Here we're on a community member's phone, and his name is Henry Parson, and he can add in the name of his request. He's looking for volunteers to help out with remote education training and can provide details of what they're looking for. Now the form makes it easier for him. He can add in what support's needed, what date it's needed, if he's already receiving some aid, and then he can provide more information. How many people is it affecting? What's the location, the city? This is all information that's going to help Jamie's team better prioritize and move things through. And with a single click, the form is submitted. And if we head back over to Asana, we'll see that the task has been created right into the new request column. All the information is there for pinnacle.org and Jamie's team to get to work on it. Great. Now, all these projects are wonderful and help Jamie's team all along, but I'd like to show you where she helps collect and manage them all together. And that's here in a portfolio. In this case, their objective is to help communities around the world with education. And there's a number of projects that help feed into that. The marketing fundraising campaign, outreach campaign, the Pinnacles event tour. Each of these help Jamie and the rest of the pinnacle.org team move these missions forward. And so here you can see the status of each project, the task progress, what dates they're in the works, and so forth. Well, let's go ahead and fast forward and see a moment which actually needs Jamie and the rest of the team to jump into action. And that takes us over to another environment. Here in Outlook, information can come to Jamie in a number of places, through phone calls, through just chatting with someone. And in this case, she gets an email from her friend, Fred, who's basically said that, hey, I've stumbled across a great opportunity for the organization. Perhaps you might want to take a look at this new grant. And a very common problem with email, and something that Jamie and the team runs into, is that key information and actions that are in emails can easily get lost inside of a thread. And so in order to preserve it, Asana and integrations help her make sure that that work keeps moving forward. Here we can see an Asana integration right inside of Outlook. She can set a due date, select what project inside of Asana to add to, and we can select that marketing fundraising campaign. We can provide a little bit of a description and create a task right here from Outlook. There are also other great integrations with communication tools like Gmail, Slack, Microsoft Teams. This really helps Jamie and the whole of pinnacle.org make sure that work is moving forward wherever they may happen. Let's click into to view the task, and we can see that it's brought in the information from Outlook. Here's that email from Fred. And now in this task, Jamie can start to get to work on this. She can assign a priority level where this email, this information came from, and it was in an email. And she can start assigning out subtasks to make sure that this grant gets followed up on. So to review it, she can assign that to herself. And she can also draft a grant proposal. And here's where she can start to involve even folks outside of pinnacle.org, contractors, for example. And so by assigning it here, we can see that a contractor has been assigned, and we can even click into that task if we want to. And here's where the contractor and guests outside the organization can collaborate together on the work. Now that last task is to log this to Salesforce. Asana integrates really well with Salesforce as well. Let's take a look at what that looks like. Here we are inside of Salesforce. You can see this grant opportunity is created right here. It has a number of stages to it, as well as details down below. The grant amount and what kind of information is relevant for this grant. Now, in order to make sure that this opportunity is well connected with the folks who can help work on it, you can see we have an Asana integration. Here you can create tasks directly from Salesforce connected to projects. In this case, let's go ahead and create a task. We'd like some help to make sure that our grant proposal really shines. So let's get some creative assistance, providing some information about what we're looking for here. To make sure that the folks who are helping us out have all the information that they need, we can attach an attachment with information about this grant. And now we can assign this to the correct Asana project, such as requests for creative production. This is going to put this task into a project that the creative team uses to prioritize and assign out work. So someone on Jamie's team who operates inside of Salesforce can use this integration to keep up to date with the creative team right through that integration. Fast forward in time, head over into this task, and let's attach the creative asset that's been requested. We can go ahead and upload this from our computer by uploading a PDF. And we see that it attaches it here into the task. Now, we need to get approval for this from Jamie. And what we can do is in the top right, we can set this task as an approval. Or we can get an approval on the attachment itself by just clicking it and requesting approval. With that, a subtask is created, and we can assign this over to Jamie. Let's go ahead and do that and provide a little a date that we need it by. And we can take a look at what Jamie sees. Here she is in her inbox. Again, the place she gets all those notifications. And we see at the very top, hey, here's that image he's been working on. And what she can do is right here, she can approve this. Now, approvals allow her to approve it, request changes, or even reject it. But this looks great, so she can go ahead and move forward. Now, the great thing about Asana and approvals is that she can not only do this at her desktop, but she can also do this on mobile at her iPad, give this thing a good approval. She can even do this on her iPhone. We see the same information, the inbox, the attachment, and approve it from here as well. Awesome. With this grant proposal approved, let's go ahead and see how we move forward with Asana and Salesforce. If we move the opportunity to the next stage, we're actually going to see something happen in the lower left. An Asana project is automatically created. And this is not from magic or demo magic. This is actually an automation between Asana's API and Salesforce's API. And if we click into that, we'll see that a project is automatically created when the opportunity hits a particular stage. This is an example of one of the many types of automations that you can create inside of Salesforce. And here a project is created with assignees, due dates, custom fields already set so that the team can get to work faster. Well, let's go ahead and fast forward in time and assume that this opportunity is awarded, which is great news. Now, Jamie and the rest of the team can get to action and help out the communities with educational opportunities. How does Jamie enact this with all of her regional program leads? Well, here we are in a project for a weekly meeting with the regional program leads. One of the tasks that Jamie has set up to help inform everyone of this new program. Here, she can lay out information about it, but in particular, let's focus on the subtask. Here, she's asking all the program leads to create their own project from a template that she set up. She's providing all the information from instructions, the grant resources, and so forth. And in order to assign this out to all her leads, well, she can save a lot of time with Asana by assigning this out to a team, like the regional team leads. Rather than assigning this to each person individually, Asana can do the hard work for Jamie. And you can see that it's assigning this out to all the folks around the world. Let's go ahead and focus on one of them, Michelle. She's the regional program lead in South America, and we saw that one of the tasks was assigned to her. So when she logs into Asana, she arrives at her inbox and sees that task that Jamie created for her. All the information about the grant, how she can enact this with her programs in the area. And what she can do is click right into that task and see the project that Jamie and the team has laid out. This makes it very easy and very quick for her to get things going. And she can use this template and create her own project. Here she will rename it to our team's regional program, set the team, And here, she can also set the start and end date. This is where Asana's automation comes into play. Because the template has a number of dates inside of its template, what Asana will do is look at that start and end date and shift all the dates automatically for her. So she doesn't need to worry about that. All the custom fields get put in. And with that, the project has been spun up and she can favorite it and add it to her left-hand side. Now, just like Jamie had portfolios to help manage their objectives, Michelle has her own. This one here called Regional Activities. It's a portfolio, a collection of projects that she uses to track all the key programs in her area that are moving their objective forward. With funding from this new grant, she can add this new project by just clicking above and adding in our team's regional program engagement. And I'd like to introduce you to the workload view inside of portfolios. Here we can see everyone on her team from Carly all the way down to Veronica. And on the right-hand side, we have a graph of all the tasks they're working on over time. And we can see it split up by the projects that they're involved with. Now, the number of tasks is a great measurement, but oftentimes some tasks are harder than others. And so if we switch this over from task count to estimated hours, we see, there's a red spot for Carly Coates. By expanding the view, we see, here's the culprit. We've got a task here that might need a little bit more time. So we can extend it to have more time and move it out. That way everything is more evened out and no one's going to suffer from burnout. This is the great thing that workload can provide to Michelle's team. The rest of the pinnacle.org team can collaborate to manage their processes, to collaborate with folks externally, even to apply for grants and execute them down to the volunteer on the ground, working to move these programs forward. With these programs looking great, Jamie can go ahead and mark off this milestone task of launching this fundraising campaign. And we've got a great celebration, and the whole team can keep the mission moving forward together. I hope you learned from this demonstration, not only about how Asana works, but also how nonprofit organizations are using this to move their missions forward. Thanks so much, and back to you.
Awesome, thank you, Alan. Wanted to pop this slide up there one more time in case people didn't have a chance to take a screenshot. That would be perfect. And we only have about 7 minutes left, so we're gonna move over to Q&A. And Michael Armstrong from the Asana team, you've been curating the chat window. So why don't you go ahead and jump in with some of the most pressing questions for our presenters today.
Sure thing. Thanks, Aaron. We've gotten a few questions about the expected learning curve for teams to learn how to use Asana and the incentives that each of the organizations have used for your teams to adopt it for daily use. So I'm curious if each of the panel participants could explain the different experiences they had with this and what was most impactful for successful adoption of Asana across your teams.
Yeah, I'll happily go first. I mean, the learning curve is very low. There are some advanced features, but you can get up and running pretty quickly with very minimal training. Especially if you just want to do task management and a bit of linking those tasks. We have used the Asana consultants to help our more advanced users scale up, but the learning curve is very small. In terms of sort of incentives for getting people on board, I mean, as Aaron mentioned, we're fairly early. We're 4.5 months in, but we're kind of ahead of schedule in what we'd hoped for in adoption. We don't have incentives. We basically just deliver it with a business argument. Look, this is going to make your workload of the management of your workload easier and better. It's going to help you be more transparent. It's going to help achieve on organizational goals.
Yeah, and I can kind of add on from Islamic Relief. Just kind of echoing what Jonathan said in terms of it being really easy to get started on. We do regular Asana lunch and learns because there's so many cool tips and tricks that different individuals will find or learn about. And so we make sure that there's kind of continuous learning around that. For our early adoption, we did start off very gradually. So we had certain individuals use it who then shared their experience, and then we had certain teams take it on. And then as they started seeing the results of better efficiency, we were able to communicate that across different teams. And then at one point, it was just kind of a matter of saying, no, I'm not going to check my email, make sure that this is on Asana, and really just building the habit of getting everyone to kind of, as you get into work, you open your Gmail, but also open your Asana inbox at the same time. So it's just building those habits and having constant communication around it as well.
Great. Okay, so the next question we have is specifically around how folks are able to use Asana to manage overall KPIs for groups of projects. I think this would be a great way to speak about whether or not anyone is using Asana for an OKR framework or goal tracking, and if they use Portfolio successfully for that.
So we don't use it for KPIs. We have milestones, and we do use portfolios for highlighting milestones for executives, but we're not using it for KPIs.
We actually do have KPIs. We aren't exactly using the portfolio feature for it, but we do have, each department has a project or task where they list their KPIs, and we have one main one that's kind of the organizational KPIs. And then each one, we use the tags feature. So you can tag departmental goals and KPIs, and if you click that tag, it kind of is a cascading visual, so you can see how different goals link to others. It's kind of confusing without a visual to explain it, but we do encourage all departments to have their KPIs on Asana and then review those kind of periodically as well and keep track on that through there.
So I think this is a good time to circle back to Matthias's question that I think is relevant for everyone here, but also speaks on that individual point about having information accessible with goals. If information is available to all users, wouldn't this create content overload? So how do each of the folks on your teams help to focus on their particular projects and boards while still surfacing important wins that need to be seen across all of your teams?
So from WCS point of view, so everything's accessible, but it doesn't go into people's inbox or doesn't go into people's own assigned tasks. So the accessibility is really just about making sure not everything or most things can be searched. And so in our organization, most of what most people do doesn't need to be a secret, and people can search for it. People, in terms of people getting the information they need and want, people have tasks assigned to them. People are in projects and they can decide what notifications they want about activities in their projects. And you can basically add someone to a task in the same way you kind of CC on an email. I think the key is keeping things open and searchable in some level allows you to kind of reduce the amount of CCing you need to do, or including people on communications. In the, if something's really important and they have to do something, then they need to be assigned, or they need to be included on a task or in a project. If it's relevant information that may be nice to know, then you can be a little bit more judicious about whether you actually push it into their communications or include them on the task, or whether you just, understand that if someone's interested in wildlife disease or a COVID effort, that they're going to search and look for who's working on it, rather than you have to push everything out to everyone.
And
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. So go on, Yusra.
No, I was just going to actually say, Jonathan put it really well. We follow a similar process.
And Michael, we only have time probably for one more quick question, but I know that we're going to have the question list and we can reach out and respond to people async. So if there's a question that could take less than a minute for a panelist to answer, that'd be a great time right now.
Sure. Sorry about that. How about for people whose work still relies on Google Docs? Do you have to recreate this work, or is there an easy way that you found to surface this information for folks to use and not change where their work is taking place?
We really like the attach feature on Asana. So we definitely do still use Google Docs a lot, especially for our programs teams where all of our proposals and all that documentation is. So we just attach the Google Docs to the relevant Asana tasks, and that way they're accessible both through Google Drive as well as Asana.
Yeah, and at Asana, we are heavy Google Drive users. But Google Drive in itself does not have action associated with it. So just like Yusra said, we attach those to files and make tasks in Asana so people know what they're supposed to do with that content instead of just having the content live out there.
Yeah, likewise, we use Google Docs. We also use other content systems. I think it goes back to the 3 C's that Aaron showed at the beginning. There's a lot to be said for a practice where you have your actions in one place, your discussions and deliberations or communications in another, and content in a third. And what's nice about Asana, it allows you to integrate those communications tools and those content tools, you know, depending on what you want to do organizationally or even at a team level.
Amazing. So quick, huge thank you to all of our presenters for joining us, for NetHope for hosting us, and for all of you for attending. Apologies, we're a minute and change over the 9 o'clock stop date for the Pacific friends, but hopefully you found this educational, and we look forward to helping y'all on your path to becoming more collaborative. So yeah, thank you very much and have a great rest of your Thursday.
Thank you, Aaron. Thank you to all the presenters and attendees. Please take a moment to complete our webinar satisfaction poll that will pop up as you leave Zoom. And don't forget, you'll receive a follow-up email later today with links to the recording and other collateral. And again, as Aaron said, please have a great rest of your day. Thank you.